This is Reverse Engineered.
Hey everyone, my name is Jon Penland, and Reverse Engineered is brought to you by Kinsta, a premium managed hosting provider. In today's episode, I'm talking with Suganthan Mohanadasan and Andy Chadwick, founders of Snippet Digital. Suganthan and Andy, welcome to Reverse Engineered.
Thanks, John. Nice to
meet you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for taking some time to chat with me today. So, to get us started, can you each introduce yourselves to our listeners?
You go first, Suganthan.
I'll go first. I'm the co-founder and the technical SEO lead at Snippet Digital. I oversee pretty much all the technical SEO side of things, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm the other co-founder, and I guess I'm more content-based. I like to do all the content and a bit of the PR side of stuff. And then basically, Suganthan and I have, it's like a Venn diagram. We have a nice little overlap in the middle, which is, I guess, why we decided to pair up in the end. We both complemented each other that way.
Yeah, nice. So I was actually going to ask about that. So Suganthan, you are on the more technical side. So just for the sake of our listeners, I mean, what are we talking about there? On-page SEO, proper structure of markup, that type of thing?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, it's all anything from crawling, indexing, anything SEO side, technical side, pretty much the server side, the website's backend, server side rendering, whichever the way the website uses, whatever the tech, and pretty much everything related to tech as well, like analyzing log files, and I also do a little bit of the analytics side as well on top of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have a technical background at all as a developer, anything like that?
I'm not a developer, but I do have a technical background. I used to be a web developer a long time ago, not like really long time ago, but
sure.
Yeah. So I do have some technical background, development background, yes.
And Andy, so then you are on the strategy side, or you had mentioned content. So can you speak a little bit to what your focus is there within the partnership?
Yeah, so I guess strategy is a good way of looking at it. So I guess, so my background is, if I go into a bit of that and maybe add some context, about 7 years ago, I started a company with a friend of mine in the living room, and we were selling roller shutters. Absolutely had no idea about roller shutters. We were just on everyone's website, and we thought, these look pretty bad. We can make a better website, and didn't even know what SEO was. But I thought, if I just get this on Google, we'll rank it. So basically, we put a strategy together about how to do that, and fast forward a few years, 4 years. We were having a turnover of about 2.5 million, and I sold the company to my friend in the end. But it was all this idea of strategy. What can we do? I had a bit of like a nice idea there. I always remember this. I always wanted to break into Dubai in the Middle East and Hong Kong in the Far East. All right. The reason being is I've always wanted to travel, which is why, if you fast forward to now, I got into this because I can travel and work where I want. Anyway, so I really wanted to break into the Middle East, and so I kept flying out there to see people and meet people. And whenever they were about to place an order, it never happened, and I couldn't work out why. And so I sat some guy down in a bar once, and he said, "Well, look, we all use like the American building standards, and you're obviously based in the UK." We paid some guy to go sit in a library for about 3 days and just write up and compare all the building codes together. And then we sent that to every architect and builder in Dubai, and all of a sudden we started getting a flood of orders through from Dubai. Nice. So I guess it's this idea of what are we doing, and what can we do differently to everyone else? So I do this. Well, I guess we both do the strategy, but then Suganthan put it really well on another thing we had on another interview that. I think I come up with lots of ideas, and then Suganthan reality checks them. So I'll come up with 10 ideas, and Suganthan will shoot 7 of them down, but we'll go with 3. So
nice.
Yeah, that's why it works well together.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so now you've given us each a picture of what you do independently or what your skill sets are. Tell us a little bit about Snippet Digital. So what does Snippet Digital do?
So I'll go first, and then Suganthan can add to it. I guess, well, first and foremost, we're an SEO consultancy. we're clear to sort of make that subtle nuance difference between consultancy and agency, because for two reasons. We want to stay small.
Okay.
And we do a lot of white labeling for other agencies, and we work with in-house clients as well. So that there is a subtle nuance there, and we're quite clear about trying to define that. Being as though we want to stay small leads us to our next USP and why things have started to take off for us. Because we're small, we've had a heavy focus on, okay, these are what typically is done inefficiently. What can we develop? What tools can we bring to what can we make that can either automate these processes or utilize technology out there? So Suganthan and I literally started 9-10 months ago, and a lot of our time and effort has been going into developing tools that utilize machine learning, artificial intelligence, all these new things that really take heavy lifting off of a lot of processes that typically you'd have 15 to 20 people in an agency doing. Don't get me wrong, we have got a network of freelancers who aid us a bit, but our main USP and the main thing that Suganthan and I are trying to differentiate ourselves on is our tech stack. I don't know if you want to add to anything there, Suganthan.
Yeah, exactly. I think you put it quite well, Andy. I think from my point, the way I look at it as well, we also bring two different type of skill sets, and as he said earlier, we kind of overlap in the middle, where I bring more of technical side and Andy brings all the strategic and content side. And then we recently had one guy joining us, and he's our CTO.
Okay.
So he takes care of some of the machine learning parts, like all the heavy development. We used to do that initially. Andy used to do some of this, but then it just got a bit more difficult. So we brought in a CTO now, and he takes care of all the machine learning. So I think we are kind of prepared in a way in SEO that content strategy, technical SEO, and machine learning. So we just make a nice, we call it like a circle, a triangle. A triangle.
And I think that speaks volumes. Our first member of staff that we employed wasn't another SEO. It wasn't even an accounts person, although now we have got someone managing our accounts. The first person we actually employed was someone with 15 years deep learning and machine learning experience. So I think that sort of sets the tone of where we're trying to go.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you've hit on something I did want to ask you about, which was this idea of staying small, because Andy, you mentioned, that there is an intent to stay small. And when I looked on your website, it sounded like it was really just there was the wording Snippet Digital as a 2-person SEO consulting firm. So it sounds like you guys are perhaps already larger than a 2-person consulting firm. Am I hearing that right? And how do you think about staying small? Is that an intentional choice you've made?
Yes and no. It's a 2-man consulting firm in the way that Suganthan and I oversee and have our toes, more than our toes, up to our heads in every client and what we do.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
It's the strategy's done by us. Everything is done by us, other than maybe some of the heavy lifting work now. They're done by. So we've started to build up a network of very talented freelancers. Again, not employed. We want to stay small and efficient. So the way, if you were a client of ours, the way we'd sell it to you, I guess, well, not sell it, but the way we'd pitch ourselves to you is that, look, we can scale with you. So if you just want strategy, me and Suganthan will do it. If you want just someone to cast over a tech or a report, Suganthan's going to do it. If you want some content briefs, I'll do that. If you want to start churning out lots of content, if you want to start implementing code, we can take all of that. If you don't have the in-house resources, we can take care of that for you. We're very open. Here's our freelancers that we use. And then we sort of put it onto our network. So it means our overheads stay small. It means we can, I guess traditionally it just means our overheads can stay small and we can be really cost efficient with the client's time. And it means Suganthan and I can put more of our time into that client rather than having, someone, we don't make big margins. Our hourly wage is our hourly wage. And, yeah, it works.
We also
really well
don't do any sort of black box system with the clients where clients, we charge them X amount and then we do all the work and they don't know what's going on. What we do is we get involved with the client, we get involved with their team, we get involved with their developers, their in-house SEOs, and we help the in-house SEOs with everything they need, and almost like training them for the long run in a way. So we never want to become like a permanent fixture in any of the companies. But we want to be like an extension to their current efforts and current marketing efforts. And it's a good model that seems to be working really well for us.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, I think, is a model where there are the two of you who are really the consultants within the business, and then you have a network of freelancers that you use to supplement your services where you need specific skill sets. So where you need writing services, where you need development services, any sort of technical or specialized service, you're pulling in your freelance network to do those things. But by working with freelancers, you avoid building up excessive overhead, and that allows you to be very nimble in how you work with your customers. Did I get the idea there properly?
Yeah, and it means like I guess a big advantage to our clients is it means when we first started, we didn't want to put clients into retainers. We wanted to do away with it. We wanted to do away with that model. We've learned it actually doesn't work. The reason being is we can't plan for anything. It means that 1 month, because freelancers have got their own jobs, right? And if a client 1 month suddenly goes, I want more, or suddenly they don't want anything, we've taken on freelancer. It didn't work. So we've changed it, and we do one-off deliverables, which is fine. If we're all under the understanding that it is a one-off deliverable, 8 times out of 10 after we've done the one-off deliverable, they want to sign a contract with us and implement that deliverable, which is great. But now we have to have a retain. We don't want long retainers though. Still, we're still talking 6 to 12 months. Some agencies lock you in for 3 to 5 years. 6 to 12 months is our maximum. But within that month, and this is where we are slightly different. We have a minimum retainer. Let's call it X amount. If 1 month they suddenly want a lot more, we can scale it up and then bring it back down again. It's really nimble like that, which is what works really well.
We try to be flexible without putting really restrictions on the client. So what we found out once if we are really firm with certain restriction, it makes the client's life a lot difficult, especially if you're an in-house SEO. So the buy-in is always difficult from the management, right? So for us, we try to be as much flexible as possible. And because both of us had in-house experience as well in the past, so that means we understand sometimes not that easy to do the buy-in. So what we do, we try to help the in-house people by being as flexible as possible.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed, you've mentioned it and it's on your website, is that you've made the point of saying we're not an agency, we're an extension of your internal team. We're an extension of your existing team. And I hear you talking a lot about flexibility and about, you work on one-off projects. If you do use a retainer, it's really a minimum retainer, and then there's services added on top of that as needed. Is that what you mean when you say that you're an extension rather than an agency? Or walk me through, what does that mean? How would you differentiate between a traditional agency and what Snippet Digital does?
So traditional agencies obviously judge themselves on a churn rate. They don't want to lose clients. They want them for as long as possible. Suganthan and we're happy to train your in-house teams, and for our what's the word I'm looking for? Our sort of not experience. What's the word? Our involvement in your business to tail off gradually.
So interesting.
Can't name any clients, but an example of a recent pitch we did is they didn't have any in-house marketing. They had in-house marketing, but nothing to do with SEO. They were very open. They wanted to in-house it in the next 3 to 4 years. So Suganthan and our pitch started. This is what it's going to be month to month, based on the fact that we're doing everything. We're hoping by month 6 you've got someone, and then we're dropping it to this. And actually, they've asked us to maybe even be involved in helping them to recruit, and we're happy to do that. We're happy to, basically bring them up. It works for everyone. I think there's this whole thing about agencies are going to die out. Everyone's going in-house, and to a point that might be true. But I think if a business completely, the difference between agencies and consultants to in-house teams is that we have to be more on top of it. We have to be a lot more aware of what's going on day to day. And I think, and I've seen it swing both ways. I've been agency side and I've been in-house. I've seen a load of businesses in-house, and then 3 to 4 years they all go agency again, and they swing it, and it keeps going like that. So I think where we're trying to be a little bit different is, we'll train your team, and then when you need us again in a year, we'll just dip in, bring things up to date, bring your processes up to date, and we'll dip out again. We're happy just to. Suganthan's term is not be a permanent extension, which
I think also there's a benefit for the companies, clients as well, for them not being able to sort of rely on train their teams internally to a point where they can kind of self-sufficient. They can do all the work. And also what happens is most companies, when they start working on it, they just don't look at it from a fresh set of eyes. So we are that people. We are always looking at it from a different angle all the time and say, hey guys, it seems like recently was a good example. I was looking at a blog, a client's blog, and I noticed they haven't had any sort of sidebar widgets in their blog, and I questioned why they don't have it, and they said they had it before they removed it. I'm like, maybe that's something we should look into it, and they thought you know what, that's actually a good idea. I said maybe we should put a opt-in form there on the sidebar and test it, see if that helps. So it's not just SEO, it's not just limited to SEO, because I think also Andy and we got more digital marketing experience in the PPC side as well. Even though we don't provide that as a service, we do have experience running Facebook ads and all of that. So we do understand the overall marketing. The important part here is the SEO is not just one thing. You have to incorporate SEO with all the other marketing channels. Everything has to work hand in hand. So because we have the experience of the other channels, so we understand what clients need as well, what other clients need, so we can work accordingly.
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting approach. I mean, I don't think a lot of businesses approach their customers with the idea that if we do our job really well, you're not going to necessarily need us in 6 months or 12 months, that at some point down the road, we're an extension to your internal team, but we're not a permanent extension. And there will come a time where it makes sense for you to go move on and do your own thing. How do you, I'm curious about your thinking around that approach. How do you feel secure taking that approach, I guess, is the way I want to ask it. How do you not live in constant terror that you're going to do a great job, and as a result, none of your customers are going to need you anymore?
And this is why we stay small. By staying small, by not employing people, we can't judge ourselves on our churn. We judge ourselves on our testimonials and the feedback we get, but not on our churn rate, because if we do our job well, our churn rate is going to be higher because we're happy to train those teams. And by staying small and by not recruiting, it's not really such a worry for us. And if we keep doing our job properly, I mean, what's there? I mean, there's 70 million small businesses in the UK alone. Add America and Norway onto that. There's just enough. It's just not a concern.
But what we also found out with that as well, Andy, right? When we with this approach, clients seem to like us a lot more, because when we deliver something really well, they always refer to us to other clients. So what that means is we haven't spent any money, any sort of marketing. We haven't done any sort of marketing. So everything sort of comes organically to us and referred by people and trusted people.
Yeah, that's interesting. That was actually going to be one of my questions. Is as I was looking at your website, even at Snippet Digital's website and then your individual websites, I didn't see a ton of marketing, and so I was curious. How do you go about attracting clients? Is that all word of mouth?
Yeah, so far it has been. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we dabbled in a LinkedIn thing for the first week, and we quickly, that was a disaster, and then we quickly quit doing that, and then we didn't need it.
Well,
one thing we do is be active on social media as well. We got a decent following on LinkedIn and Twitter, so we stay quite active on Twitter, especially Andy, not much, but I'm quite active on social media, and we try to sort of talk about. We try to also help people as well. We also are part of few SEO forums and channels, like Slack channels, one called Traffic Think Tank, which is huge. you will find all the SEOs hang out there. So we try to hang out there. We try to help people as much as possible. We don't expect anything from anyone by helping, and we love helping newbies. Like anyone's coming to SEO, we host a Clubhouse call every Friday, 1 hour. Anyone can come and ask any question SEO. Everything completely, all free of charge, and we don't sell anything. We don't pitch our business. We don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah. So that's interesting. In that scenario, you are not necessarily, I guess, from my perspective, you're not necessarily interacting with people there who are going to be your clients. If anything, those are going to be your competitors. So I'm curious how that translates into business, or am I just thinking about it wrong? Are your customers actually there?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
That's a good question, actually.
John, I couldn't tell the answer. There's a big topic that we've been talking a lot about is personal branding, and I think I think it comes down to that a lot. And
I talk about blogging and stuff, Andy. The blogging stuff.
Yeah, personal branding. Suganthan was right when Suganthan helps a lot of people without asking for anything in return, and the word gets around like that. It all sounds quite ephemeral and like esoteric and hidden by the black, but actually that is what we're doing. We're not
right. Yeah,
we're just helping people, and I think the biggest problem people have with doing this is it has taken time.
Sure.
What I mean is Snippet Digital hasn't taken time. Snippet Digital's taken 9 months, but I've been building up my name over 3 years, and Suganthan's been building his up over 10 years. So it's the reason we joined together works because we already had the name. Rise at 7 are a good example of this. Carrie Rose, her name's massive, and she's all about personal branding, and people buy into Carrie Rose, so they buy into there. And she says it wonderfully. I think she had a phrase where like, don't be afraid to teach people what you know now, because by the time they're implementing it, you should already be onto the next thing, which was a great idea.
That's exactly what we do, right, Andy? We don't hold anything. We teach people all the time. People see in our blog post, and like if we come up with a new idea, we always share it and say, hey guys, it seems like this is something new. Let's have you guys tried this? This is what we've done, and this is the results. We try to share as much as possible. We don't hold. We have no secrets. We just don't hold anything. We just share everything we learn.
Yeah, so like an example, I wrote a blog recently on faceted navigation, and I can pin it down to why it's typically a topic which is shrouded in mystery and uses overly complex words and development speak. And I made just a really simple article, posted it, and that one blog within 4 weeks led to about 16.5 grand worth of business.
Okay.
Just by going big and simplifying an issue.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense. I mean, because there's probably a good chance, I suspect, that your customers are actually in those spaces where a small business owner is trying to figure out SEO for themselves, or where you have a small internal marketing team and they're trying to scale things and they don't really know what to do next. So, probably some of your competitors are in there as well, but your customers are there as well because they need the information and they're looking for, a consultancy to help them take those next steps.
Well, we also, you're mentioning small companies a lot there. A lot of our companies are actually rather big. And the people who hire us are the head of SEO for that company. Yeah. And sometimes they want us to, either they don't have the resources internally and they want us to help. Sometimes they just want a second eye over things. Or sometimes it's the director himself and he doesn't want to hire an SEO department, but he wants to hire all the staff that we basically guide them. Sometimes it's just SEOs of already big companies asking us to look over their work. And again, we've been very honest with this. Sometimes, and I think this sort of word of honesty gets around, sometimes the SEOs who've asked us to cast a second eye over their work have done a better job than we were going to do when we looked at it. And we've said, like, look, I know we're honoured that you've asked us, but what you've just provided us is insanely good.
Really
we don't want to take your money because we won't offer any value to you. And we're very honest like that as well.
Yeah, I think I tweeted about this a couple of days ago when Andy actually talked about this. I said, we don't chase money. What we chase is problems in SEO. I think it's also the nature, because both of us are quite curious people, and because we are technical, we try to always solve some issues. So I think that's one of the things we do as well. We always try to chase a problem. And if we see a problem with client side, we jump on it and say, okay, how can we fix it? What's the best way to do this? I think people can see that, like even clients, they can see that we're just not there just to sell them something. We don't sell anything. We don't, we don't even have a salesperson or anyone. We just, we're just being completely honest with clients and what we can do, where there are times, as Andy said earlier, like we just can't do more than what they have done already. And they've already done a great job. In that case, we just say, hey guys, listen, sorry, there's nothing more we can do here.
Yeah, it's funny. A couple of times, Andy, you've mentioned where you guys help companies that are trying to build a marketing team or build an SEO team. And it just reminded me, we had somebody internally who was doing marketing, and it was really, maybe there were really two or three people working together, and one of our key people left. And we were left with the task of building a marketing team. And by and large, we didn't really even know the language, right? Like I know a little bit about SEO, but it's very limited. And our ability to think about, because you guys have talked about SEO is really connected to the entire marketing picture when we talk about online marketing. It just strikes me the potential value there to bring that expertise in for a company. Kinsta a year ago was already well established, and here we were sitting there going, we need to build a marketing team, and we don't even really know the language, right? Like, is that something you found that as you approach a company and you think these guys have got it figured out, and you get in there and go, okay, right. So like a really well established company really may still have a lot to learn. Yeah,
heaps. And in fact, I've been honest with this before. We had the biggest pitch of our lives 5-6 months ago.
Okay.
Huge international. When I say international company, I mean every country. Huge company. And quite honestly, it wasn't so much the marketing team; it was the SEO. But they were very upfront. They had no idea about SEO, and they'd never even considered it. And I went bowling in with all these changes that should be made, not really taking into account that. It wasn't offensive per se, but it wasn't. It needed to be more gradual than I went in.
Sure.
And so I learned the hard way. He was very good. He called us back 2 weeks later and said we were unsuccessful, but gave us all the reasons why.
Right.
It was to kick up the arse I needed anyway. But yeah, to answer your question, we've seen international companies just without anything in place like that.
A huge potential to sort of win by making very simple changes, but they still kept the idea that it's a product first company. But it wasn't the fault of the SEOs anyway. It's not even anyone's fault. It's just the way the business ran. It was product first only, and they always looked at SEO as like the last thing. So it's all come down to the management decisions at the end of the day. Even people who work there, they are kind of helpless sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to back up, because one question that we haven't talked about at all is, how did Snippet Digital come to be? I mean, I know you both have been in the space for a number of years, establishing your own personal brands. And then if I understand correctly, Snippet Digital came into being maybe 9 months ago or so. Is that about right? How did that happen?
10
about 10 months over. Yeah, about 10 months though,
how did that happen?
A couple of pints and a packet of Chris, John, to be honest. We,
Nice.
I was already building like a really basic version of. So what we're getting known for now is our keyword categorization tool, which uses machine learning and natural linguistic programming to basically speed up that process. And I'd already built a basic version of PHP, and I was showing Suganthan over a pint. And
a pub in London?
Yeah, pub in London. Suganthan and I have only met once, by the way, because then it all went into lockdown. And then, Suganthan was talking to me about all sorts of stuff I didn't understand, and we were like, let's just get together. And then we were meant to get together a month or two later, but I went to Australia, and I got stranded there because of COVID, so I was there for 3 months. Time zone difference just meant we just weren't talking very much. And then, we just thought, no, we need to push ahead with this. We're both consultants as well. We've got our own businesses, and then we've got Snippet in the middle. We're slowly pushing more and more of our resources to Snippet because we're more excited about it. It's got the tools we're building. It's got the IPs that we own. It's growing as a team in itself. And to be honest, I don't have time to do my own stuff anymore.
So
it's just gradually moving what clients I can from my own little consultant thing to Snippet. But with Snippet, we've got a minimum threshold of caliber of client. I don't mean caliber, I mean minimum type spend. So some of those clients can't come over. So, but at the same time, I don't want to leave them in the lurch. So it's trying to just taper that off a little bit.
Right. That is something I was curious about because I did see that you both had freelancing businesses on the side, and I was curious how you balance your freelance projects against what you're doing together at Snippet Digital. And it sounds like what I'm hearing is that really the freelance businesses, they're still going on because maybe there are some situations where clients aren't right for Snippet Digital, but the Snippet Digital is where your focus is right now. Is that true for both of you?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So Suganthan, are you in the same boat where you have clients who have been with you for a long time that you're still working with?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So at this point, are you guys? You're actively moving clients from your freelance business into Snippet Digital where they are a reasonable fit for the project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and anyone who inquires to my personal one, I make a call on whether they're big enough to move over. If they're not at the moment, I'm turning them down. I don't have the time. If they are, I introduce them to Snippet Digital instead.
I do the same. From my end. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Very nice.
For us as well, we also believe, John, the other point I want to make that we also believe in sort of work-life balance. One thing what we don't want to, both of us want to do is sort of burn out, work so many hours day and night trying to build something, which we both against. We got families, and what we do is also want to make sure whatever work we do is done efficiently, and we have enough time for our families and personal life as well.
Right.
Speak for yourself at the moment.
Yeah, I did actually want to ask about that. If we back up one step and look at the big picture, people start businesses for all sorts of different reasons. Sometimes folks just need income, or maybe they're trying to solve a problem they really care about, or maybe they're trying to create a certain kind of life. There are other possibilities as well. And I'm curious for each of you, what are the reasons that motivated you to want to found and build Snippet Digital?
I wanted to build something that that can be. So the SEO consultant is part of it, but my biggest excitement is building the tools that we're building. I really wanted to use the word legacy. Sounds pretentious. I wanted to build something that I could,
right.
It's more something to be proud of when you've got something physical that people are using.
Sure.
And I wasn't going to achieve that on my own with my own consultancy. A, because the branding wouldn't have worked. And B, I wouldn't have had the resources. C, I wouldn't have been able to get the sort of clients that would pay the money that would fund those tools being built. So for me, it was the idea of building something that excited me.
And how about you? For you,
for
Suganthan?
me, it's a bit more around. Before I did Snippet, I still have worked with a VC firm in the UK, and I was earning quite comfortable money, and I haven't had any issue with the finance side of things. And I was also doing a lot of freelance work in Norway itself. But I think it got to the point where I just wanted to do something different, because I just wanted to do something, as Andy said earlier, something to put my name on it and say, you know what, this is something we built that we're quite proud of.
Sure.
That's when I met Andy, and I realized, this the tool idea that came, and we thought, that's something we can really build.
Yeah.
One of the other things as well I noticed, because I use lots of tools in the SEO industry, there are thousands of tools. What I realize is most of the tools, they lack sort of actionable insight. They lack action. They all give you the data. So they was like, if you want a keyword data, they will tell you the keyword data, but it won't tell you what to do, how to execute it. That's always the difficult bit, right? That's the problem that I wanted to solve. That's when I met Andy, and I realized, look, Andy is really interesting tools, and he already built sort of a back framework, and then we just built on top of it. And we're quite excited about our tools, and that's the main goal. It's not even main sort of building an agency. That's why we also stay small, because if we are an agency, we would have hired 15 people by now, which is not the case.
Sure. Yeah, so it's interesting to hear you both have a product focus when present time, if I go to your website, it's primarily geared more towards a consultancy. And so I did want to talk about because your website says that your efforts are facilitated by your own proprietary software, which is in continual development. So I wanted to talk about that without asking you to give away any secrets. What is this software? And well, let's start with that. What is it that you guys have built internally that you're using?
There's about 4 different parts now. They all need to be combined, but one is one staying internal to us. Maybe we will allow certain hand-picked agencies to use it. Okay. We call it Keyword Decipher, and it's what makes sense of your keyword research type data. Okay. We're keeping that internal because it's a bit of a learning curve to use it, and we don't want the name to be butchered by poor use of it. And it really is one of our selling points when we pitch of why you should use us. So I guess that tool is built to get that's our USP. And then we've got another tool which Suganthan can talk more about, because it's more of his baby. Parts of it work into Keyword Decipher, but it's like a clustering and a context tool, which probably won't mean anything if I just say it on this. But we're trying to release that actually as a
SaaS tool.
A SaaS tool.
It's going to be a SaaS tool soon. Yeah.
It's
currently in private beta.
Right. So I was going to ask, is that going to be under the Snippet Digital brand, or is that a different venture entirely, and Snippet Digital lives on as a consultancy?
It's going to be part of Snippet Digital.
Okay.
But it is on a different domain.
It's going to be a different domain, different brand name, the tool itself, but it will be managed by us.
Yeah, and continue to be, I assume, a core part of what you guys bring to your clients.
Yeah.
All right, so that's 2 pieces. There's the Keyword Decipher and the cluster or context tool, which I don't know if Suganthan wants to provide any context around that.
I can explain a little bit. It's about clustering and grouping keywords by topic. Okay, we use machine learning models, proprietary models that we train, sort of custom trained models to, and also live search engine results data to scrape data, and we figure out a way to combine keywords. So you can do that at scale. I mean, it's not a new idea, definitely not a new idea. There are quite a few other tools out there that does exactly what we do, but we do a bit more differently. I think our accuracy is a lot more higher, and our approach, our deliverable on that, the output is quite easy and it's actionable. A sort of pivoted table, we give you the data. So you can do it at scale as well. You could do 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 keywords that you can put in.
2.5 million.
You can go up to million. It's not a problem because we can support that kind of scale. I think it's all about scale as well, even on our Keyword Decipher platform. That's what Andy was saying earlier. Like most of the keyword research output, any agency, they will always give you a Google Excel document with your keywords. And there's always a limit to 5 million rows, but we can do millions of rows with our tech. I think that's where we kind of always better. And also, like, you probably heard about search intention, that, trying to figure out the intent of the search query. We also do, that's what Andy was saying about context, is that we could figure out, we can tell you exactly the type of content that you want to produce for a keyword, given keyword, by analyzing the search results.
Yeah, I think to give you like I guess an example would be easier to conceptualize it. The clustering part basically allows you to very quickly, as Suganthan said, group keywords. But what we mean by group them is it's not just based on their semantic relationship to one another. It's actually, these are the keywords you can target on one page, and these are the keywords you can target on another page. Okay. And the reason I'm making the clear distinction that it doesn't just use semantic sort of relationships is sometimes 2 keywords you think are really related, and yet you run them through our tool, and actually that they are to Google, at least, and Bing shows 2 different results for the seemingly 2 similar keywords. An example was, we had a client that sells vaporizers, and we had vaporizer parts as one cluster, and then we had vaporizer accessories as another cluster. And I was thinking, well, those two clusters, surely vaporizer parts and vape accessories are the same thing.
Right.
And then
Should
what
be a
was
lot
even
of
more
overlap.
interesting, and then what was even more interesting is when you drop down vaporizer accessories, or I can't remember which way around, but when you drop down vaporizer vape parts, the keyword vaporizer accessories was in that cluster rather than in vape accessories. And you're thinking, well, that's when we thought our tool was broken. We actually tested. We tested it, and no, vape accessories had more in common with vaporizer accessories had more in common with vape parts than it did with vape accessories. And we asked the owner, and he had to think about it for a minute, and then he actually said, actually, that makes sense because there's a slight nuance between tobacco and cannabis smokers, and they call them
different things.
Wouldn't have even seen that, and you would have been optimizing for the wrong page or whatever. So that's the clustering part, and then the intent. We call it context now, because there's all this buzz about intent, and if you Google or watch videos of people working out keyword intent, what you see is you'll see someone have a list of keywords and they'll drag down a formula and it'll say like transactional, location, video, this sort of stuff. And we actually did develop something that did that, but it was so hard, and it looked cool, but it was so hard to actually do anything with that information. Like, this keyword's transactional, locational, and visual. What do you want me to do with that?
Right.
So we made that. We peeled that right back and made it simple. Like, do I need to write a blog post? Do I need a product page, or is it some other page I need?
That makes
just
sense.
3. That's it. So now what happens is you'll have 3 columns, and it'll tell you of the 10 results in Google, how many are product, how many are blog. So sometimes you'll get fragmented intent, right? You'll get some keywords that trigger 5 blogs and 5 transactional pages. We can see that now, and we know that you've got 2 opportunities to rank there. And you see some really interesting things. Again, the way, if you see it all the time on LinkedIn and stuff, the way people are at the moment classifying these keywords is they're saying, okay, if you've got the word why, how, guide, to, where, it's going to be a blog. If it's got the word sell, buy, to, coupon, it's going to be transactional. But if it's just a seed keyword, it's probably going to be transactional. So iPhone 7, that's probably going to be transactional, because if someone's Googling iPhone 7, surely they want to buy an iPhone 7. If you Google iPhone 7 now, you'll see probably, I think 6 results are actually blog and 4 are actually product pages. So that's an example of where you've just completely gone the wrong way with it. Because iPhone 7, it's The Verge is one, top 3
Mac
things
rumors,
you know about iPhone.
Mac rumors,
Mac rumors, Wikipedia. Then there's an Argos or a Walmart ad. Then there's another blog, another comparison. Then there's, the Apple ad. So keywords like that, which traditionally and typically people would put into a transactional bucket, actually need that bit extra. And as Suganthan said, there's tools that do similar things. We just think ours is, well, we know ours is a lot more accurate.
It's more actionable. I would also say it's more actionable.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds like you're making it simpler for the user. Like they don't have to then interpret what should they take away from this information. You're just telling them, this is what you need to do here.
That's right,
Yeah. So you had mentioned that there were 4 tools internally, and I'm not sure how many we've covered. So I know there was
2. They're the
we've
2
covered
big
everything.
Ones.
Okay. Nice.
We're doing like a content auditing type thing as well. And then off the back of that, we want to do like an internal linking thing. The weird thing is they all use the same logic. They all use the same, they use part of the BERT algorithm is one, which is the same algorithm Google uses. And they all use the same logic, just tweaked in different ways. So the end goal is to push it all together, not to make one platform, but there's actually a clear workflow there. I.e., you do your keyword research and you feed them into our clustering and context tool. You click a button and that pushes it to Keyword Decipher. Now you can visualize it. And then you click another button and it'll start auditing the content you've already got and merging it with the keyword research. And then finally you click another button and it will show you how to then internally link to the content you've started. So there's a really nice workflow there, but at the moment they're very segmented. Two are on locally on a mine in Suganthan's computers, are not even out of beta yet. But we're not going to beat ourselves up because it's only 9 months and we've got 2 off the ground.
We also have smaller tools as well, John. We got quite a few smaller tools like internally we use like site migrations. Like when you want to do a migrate a website, you want to map the old URL structure to the new one if they change the URL structure. But if their site is a big site with thousands of pages, it's impossible almost to manually map these, right? Like 301 redirects. We got a tool that again uses the BERT algorithm to contextually map the redirect. So with the press of a button, we could map thousands of pages, and contextually, it's not just even like it doesn't even need the exact words in the URLs to match. It could look at semantically and say,
interesting.
Yeah, this is semantically related to this. So we got lots of small other tools as well, like Google Ads matching. Like we could take your Google Ad keywords and try to match them with the organic again. So we could do a lot of cool stuff like that.
Yeah, a good example of the URL mapping one is a lot of people use fuzzy logic, and it works well. It can compare two URLs that are similar enough.
Sure.
But what happens if these URLs don't have much in similar at all? And we have a really good example recently. We've run it. A guy had a blog called Cash Strapped. It was about what to do when you're cash strapped, and he had another blog about being under pressure. And for one reason or another, one didn't exist anymore. And if you ran that through a fuzzy logic, it wouldn't pair up anything because there's nothing to pair up to. But what our one did is it paired up his blog on Cash Strapped to the one on being under pressure, which is contextually it was quite it was really clever.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you've got all of these different tools. You're using them internally. Some of them just locally on your computers for today. So is the plan then to transition at some point from being a consultancy to being a SaaS company, or do you plan to run the two things side by side? Like what's the long-term trajectory here for Snippet Digital?
I think we've both got our own ideas, I think.
Okay, all right. So okay.
Right, do you want to start?
I don't know how much I can say.
Yeah.
How much can I say?
I think for us it's just to develop the tools further, and it's also about, it's just challenging anything new concepts and trying to figure out everything. Like anything new, like internal linking, for example. There are a lot of clever people doing a lot of clever stuff. How to do that, and we want to do the best way. Like we want to find the best way to do it. It's about continuous development, and these tools also help us with the client work.
Exactly.
Like it speeds up, and then again it goes back to the point of it's just two of us because we don't need a lot of people. Because imagine that example, as I told you, when a migration happens, if there's 20,000 pages that need to be migrated to a new URL, we can map that within an hour. That's going to take forever for a freelancer to hire someone to sit and do this manually. I think that's the game plan for us. Is in the long run is to develop the tools. So they become the IPO, they become our part of IP of our company, and that's going to be the main. It's going to play the main role in our company, and then it's going to be 50-50, I would say. But I told Andy earlier it's going to be 70-30, but Andy want to do 50-50, I think, right?
Sure. So, I mean, you're building tools that you yourselves are using within your consultancy, right? Yes. You're building the tools that make you more efficient. Yes. And then if you've built the tools and there's an opportunity to diversify your revenue at that point, then why not take advantage of that opportunity? Yes. So, I do have to ask about the URL mapping, because what it sounds to me, and maybe I haven't captured the idea here, but it sounds to me like what you're doing is you're really kind of applying all of the tools that you've built. So you have a content audit, and you're kind of doing a content audit and identifying the relevant keywords, and then you're letting that inform the context or the intent, the type of page that this should go to. And so it sounds, if I'm understanding correctly, you do an audit, or you gather the information from the old URL structure, and then allow that to inform not just the URL structure, or not just the page that it should land on at the new site based on URL structure, but based on these other factors that you're looking at, things like context and intent. Is that accurate?
No, I'd love it to be, but that's far more complicated than it needs to be.
Okay, all right.
It literally passes the URL, or we can go in depth as we want. We can either, depending on what the site is, we can just pass the URL, or we can. So some URLs, typically for some e-commerce sites, are nonsensical. It might just say product 127, and in which case you can't. In which case we can pull in the H1 or the description. If that's also nonsensical, we can also pull in depending on what their setup is. It takes longer, but in an ideal world, we just pull the URL in. Okay, this site isn't built right. We're going to pull in the H1 and description. Okay, this really is bad. We're going to pull in the on-page stuff as well. And basically it just uses the BERT algorithm, which basically uses encoders and transformers to work out what the meaning and the context of that is, and then pairs it with a percent, and what it spits out is it pairs it with something, and it gives you a percentage of how similar when we say intent at this point, we don't mean like, is it an article or blog? I mean the intent behind what does the user actually want to know. So yeah, it doesn't pull in everything. It literally just passes what it is there and runs it over the BERT algorithm, which obviously is open source, and anyone can get that code. So yeah, a lot simpler than
I think
how
it's all about putting together as well, John. Like, it's all about putting together things into make something that's actionable. I think it's all about action. That's our almost mantra, right? Andy?
Right. Yeah. Default to moving fast and not overthinking it a little bit, it sounds like. So I did want to ask, you've both been in the SEO space now for a number of years. What keeps you interested and engaged in that space?
For me, it's, the community is a big part. I really like the community.
Nice.
Everyone helps each other, and I feel like there's people that I haven't met yet, but I am. So when the borders are open, I'm off traveling for the next, let's say, 5 years. I just want to go.
Yeah.
And there's people that I've never met who I'm already messaging to meet up with drinks. It's just a lovely community. So I mean, that's a big part, is the social aspect of it. I know that doesn't really answer why I like doing the job. The job for me is the problem solving as well. Like Suganthan said, it's so new. There's loads of problems that haven't been solved yet. How do we map URLs at scale? And then more than that, there's technologies that keep coming out that we can then use it. So we've been using BERT to map URLs. GPT-3 now is available, and we have access to it at Snippet Digital. We've got one of the beta accesses. So there's all sorts of new things we can build. And in 2 years, there's going to be, let's say, GPT-4, and we can do even more crazy stuff. Constantly changing, the social aspect of it. And then another big part of me, completely related. So Suganthan talked about having time to sort of play as well as work.
Sure, yeah.
I don't have a family. I don't have that. My goal was always, and has always been, I was an army brat as a kid. I moved around every 3 years. I grew up in Italy and Australia and America, and I think part of me still has that gypsy in me, and I want to travel around a bit.
Right. Yeah.
So another big part of why I joined this was it gives me that freedom. So there's three for me: freedom, constantly changing, and the community. I think is brilliant.
Yeah. How about for you, Suganthan?
Yes, I think for me is mainly Google. I mean Google's the main search engine, and it's when you're in SEO for long, it's quite interesting to see how they evolved over the years. Like when it was so easy, SEO was easy 10 years ago, a lot easier, and it's a lot difficult now. It's just given with the technology advancement and all the AI and machine learning, Google has improved a lot lately, and every update they come up with, they always come up with something new, and they say, guys, look, we've done this now, and and it just keeps you in the edge all the time. Like you can't ever get comfortable in thinking, this strategy I'm going to apply now. I'm just going to do this for like 5 years. It doesn't work, because after 2 years, things have changed. It used to be 2 years, it used to be 1 year. It's now almost like every 3 months there's a core update, right? And every core update has a huge impact sometimes. Some, like last update, had a decent impact as well. So then you need to be on top of your game all the time. And for me, I love that sort of stuff. You probably, I don't know, you see me on Twitter, I'm always on top of it. And I'm kind of always first to notice things as well. If I see something, and I get curious, and I try to investigate that a little bit, try to figure out, how and why. And I always experiment a lot, and that's also the second part for me. Is all about the R&D bit, which I love doing R&D because if there's a new thing, one of the first people to jump in and then test it, and probably even publish the results. I don't keep anything to myself. If I see something that's working, I say, guys, this is working. If you want to test it, here you do it, and probably even maybe do a small tutorial. So that's the second thing. Just the first one is the challenge. Second one is keep me at the edge. The last thing is also SEO. I mean, as I said, Andy, it's a community. We got lots of friends. We got really cool friends in SEO. And the community itself is really cool because we all come together. There are many places like Slack, Twitter. There's a whole thing called SEO Twitter. I mean, there are fights time to time, but that's normal. And then you have places like Slack groups are huge now. I don't know if you realize, I mean, Slack groups are becoming quite huge. Like Traffic Think Tank, we have to mention Traffic Think Tank. That's because we both met Traffic Think Tank first, Andy. I met Andy at Traffic Think Tank first because we both were members and we both were helping people whenever they had a question, and we will always jump in and help. And then we started talking, and then we started doing one project. Andy had an issue, and I always bounce ideas off Andy, and he will do the same. And we just like one day we said, you know what, let's build something, make something together, and that's the whole Snippet Digital came. So that's the third thing about the community. And if you go to a place like Traffic Think Tank, you will see the amount of help you get. Like even if you're a newbie and no one's gonna call you out, like you could be a complete newbie and you can ask the most basic question, and there's no one's gonna say, hey, this is bad, or why are you asking the basic question. 99% of the time people will always try to help you. And you'll be also surprised. There are so many people as your experts who have been in the field for longer than me or Andy. And you'll be surprised if you just ask them, they will always help you. It's just you have to make that move. A lot of people are afraid to ask them, as I think, oh, these guys are big and I don't want to go near them. And I was feeling the same way when I was kind of coming online, like sort of building brand. I was always terrified of asking a question because I thought people were going to crucify me. It's not the case, because the minute you open up a discussion, there's 100 replies always. They always bring in something new and always learn something new. That's the other thing, because you'll be surprised to you'll learn the coolest thing from someone who never heard of before. If you go to conferences, are amazing. SEO conferences, if you go, you meet a lot of cool people, and you meet the most random people as well, you never met, and you start talking, and then you realize this person is a genius, and then you become friends, and you learn something from them. I think that's that's the other thing I love about SEO.
I love the conferences are a big thing for me. I absolutely love them.
Both of you guys have talked a lot about the SEO community. And one of the questions that I did have is if you had somebody within that community. You describe it as a place where folks are happy to share their expertise. So if you had somebody in that community who was not established either as a freelancer or with their own company, and they wanted to move in that direction, what would be some advice you would give them? What advice would you give, somebody who's in the space and wants to strike out on their own? How should they begin that process?
So are they're already in SEO, and you're asking what would they be doing?
So brand writing, I think.
Yeah. So the question is how do you launch your business? If you are an SEO, but maybe you're working for a company, or you just, you've learned, but you haven't actually launched your own company, what advice do you give somebody getting started?
I think finding
personal
USP,
branding,
right, Andy, right? Personal branding and finding a USP.
That's a big one. Getting your niche nailed. So Suganthan helped me massively with this. To be fair to him, if you look at my first website, and actually I don't know why Suganthan gave me this advice, because his website was the same, but my website said I did everything. I did SEO, PPC. Suganthan's was the same. But I actually got this advice from Suganthan. He said niche down on keyword research, because I was building the keyword research tool, and he said that's what you seem to enjoy, and that's what the problem you're trying to fix. And actually, that's what Snippet Digital is now. All our tools start with that, but they're going to fold out. So Snippet Digital, we're hoping, gets known for keyword research. My name's hoping to get associated with machine learning AI. Suganthan's with log file analysis. That's such a tiny niche.
That's very specific.
The first one you think about. Tech and International, you think Alida Solis. PR, you think Carrie Rose.
Schema, David
or Jada. And then, there's these names that just keep coming. And if you can really, I could pluck things out the air now. You could have a Shopify expert and get known on that. There's so many little things. Suganthan taught me that, so I've got him to thank for that. I think the other big thing Suganthan taught me, to be honest, Suganthan, I'm just reading off all the advice you gave me.
Go for it.
Was just, I sort of learned it on my own, but then I hadn't worked out actually how powerful it was helping other people. Matt Barbie actually did it as well. If you speak to Matt Barbie, he did it when he first started out. He was going on Moz forums, Twitter forum, and he would spend the first 2 hours of every day going through and answering loads of questions. It was the same with me and Traffic Think Tank. It was the same with me on Facebook groups. I was just going out and putting my name down answering as many things. I guess another thing, which actually I don't think gets talked about often, I was going to say don't be a dick, but that's obvious. But the more you support other people and give them credit for their achievements, they give it back to you. And it sounds so simple, but you know, there's people that I've just retweeted something and said this is amazing, and then the minute I post a blog, they retweet it, and and then it's sort of a snowball effect. I think too often people are worried that if you're boasting about someone else's work, you're taking the attention off you, but actually you're not. You're creating some sort of weird echo chamber where everyone then starts amplifying your achievements as well.
I think it goes back to, Andy, what John said earlier about competitors, that we are, trying to, but that's I don't think we consider people as competitors, because we consider them as friends always, because we have seen with many occasions where we've seen a freelancer who would say, come to us and say, hey guys, I got a couple of clients that I just can't, I can't manage because, it's too much work for me. Can you help? Can you help? Because, they will give that client to us or refer them to us. Many times, it happened many times. So that's the thing. If we thought like, okay, they're a competitor, we're not going to engage with them in any way, right? We're just going to do our own thing and keep all our things with us. It doesn't work. Once you open it up.
Our biggest thing is we're hell-bent on not stepping on anyone's toes, and it's working well for it. Like, we are getting work from not only the end consumer, we're getting work from other SEOs who can't handle the work. We're getting work from other agencies who want us to do the work. We're just so careful not to step on people's toes. That it works.
I think to answer your question as well on the personal branding side, if someone want to get into this and if they want to do something on their own, either freelance or build even an agency or a consultancy, I think my advice would be to start doing it. Don't overthink it. I've seen where people overthink and they spend years trying to think, I want to do everything right before I start something. And I think that's always the bad idea. You got to start somewhere and you could have the most basic website. It doesn't matter, right? You don't have to spend $10,000, building a fresh, polished website to start with. You don't have to. You could start with a basic WordPress website, which is free, by the way, and then just build from there. And it's all about skills as well. But I would say is as well, start building relationships within your community network. Don't burn any bridges with people, and start blogging. There are many ways you can kind of express your skill sets. Like, you can do blogging, you can do podcasts, you can do sort of YouTube videos. There are people who are doing so many different things. You could find the niche that works for you, right? And the other advice I would say is also, you want to obviously learn everything in SEO as much as possible because it helps you. So the generalist versus specialist, but try to become a specialist in one thing and you're really good at, and then people will know you by that. I mean, that's the way forward, because then you're going to start getting work that you can't handle, because everyone will be like, okay, this person doesn't do everything. They do one thing right.
They do this one thing. Yeah.
And they do it right.
Yeah. So I just want to summarize. I think you guys hit a lot of really good advice there for our listeners. So the things that I heard are to, with your personal branding, pick something. Don't try to be everything. Pick what it is that you're going to do. So specialize. And then within that specialization, Suganthan, something you went a little further and said, if you're going to specialize, make sure you really do become the expert in that thing. So don't just specialize in Word only, but genuinely become the expert in that thing. Andy, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, just to drill down to, because what people who watching this might think now is, I'm not an expert in Shopify or keyword research.
Sure.
So you don't just have to think like that way. Yeah. You can be an SEO generalist, but then specialize in a niche, specialize in lawyer firms, or specialize.
You can also do that way,
yeah.
Or specialize in e-commerce. Do you know what I mean? So if there's people watching this and going, I don't want to just specialize in Shopify, I do a bit of everything. Just choose a niche instead, then like a market.
Right.
That sets you apart from the other people. That's what it is, because there are so many people doing SEO, right? And then the question is what makes you different?
Yeah, right. So the specialization, is really about saying, what is it that makes me unique? As an offer within this space.
So if it's not something technical or highly niche within SEO, make it a niche market, or make it a e-commerce, or make it lead gen, or make it you specialize in affiliate, or make it you specialize in CBD sites, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you wanted to stay generalist, that's fine. Just choose something.
Yeah. And then some other stuff that you guys hit on. One of the things was be helpful. you guys highlighted that one of the ways to establish yourself is to find these communities and to lend your help as best you can. Support others. That was said a couple of different ways. Don't burn bridges, network, support others. Don't overthink. So go ahead and put yourself out there, even if it's not completely perfect. And then find a way to express yourself. So, whether that's a podcast or a blog or whatever that is, find a way to get your voice out there. So I think that's good stuff. I think that's great stuff. So as we get ready to bring this conversation in for a landing, I have 2 wrap-up questions for you guys. So first, what is a resource you would recommend to our listeners? That could be a newsletter, a blog, somebody to follow on social media, a book, a conference. Just what's something that you think the listeners to Reverse Engineered should check out this resource?
See, I can never mention a newsletter because if I mention one, there's probably 4 others I should have mentioned.
Sure.
SEO FOMO is Aleda Solis is really good.
Okay.
Everyone should follow that one. She shares really cool, she curates a list of articles, like the best articles. So
sure.
You don't have to be always online and read everything. You can get a weekly thing. I think Nick Elroy, he got a SEO for Lunch newsletter. That's really good. And then Saijo George, he got a what is it called, Andy?
Oh.
Let's get that wrong.
Get it every morning. But I actually read all of them.
Yeah, it's TDLR Marketing.
Okay,
TDLR.
TDLRmarketing.com.
Right.
So, Saijo's newsletter covers not just SEO, it covers all the marketing stuff. Anything new happening in marketing, all these articles, anything new, any new updates, and he covers that a lot.
Okay. Andy, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I keep...
Okay.
We keep forgetting. There's quite a few people we keep forgetting.
Sure.
Like Kevin Indig, if you subscribe to his newsletter, that's always really interesting. And then I like some of the ones that aren't so well known. Content Curate. I like wacky ideas.
Sure.
Content Curated is nothing to do with SEO. It's just cool stuff people are doing in terms of getting PR links. I love it. It gives me inspiration.
Yeah.
So I've dabbled in a few little PR ideas before. So I love stuff like that. So Content Curated is a good one for that.
All right, perfect.
And there's probably some we've missed out, so apologies for that.
Well, we'll make sure and get links to all of those in the show notes for our listeners. So
Thank you.
Last question for you. Where should people go to connect with you or to learn more about Snippet Digital?
At Snippet Digital, isn't it, Suganthan?
Yeah, we're on Twitter, both of us. I'm Suganthan MN at Anandi.
I'm Digital Quokka, but don't ask. A quokka is a little Australian animal if you don't know.
Yeah.
We are quite active on Twitter, so you can follow us and kind of see what we do, because we always talk about what we do, the tools, anything new in SEO, we always talk about it. So yeah, Twitter is the best place for us. If not, you can catch us on Traffic Think Tank. That's a paid SEO community, just so you know.
Yeah. And the website is just snippet.digital.
Yeah,
correct.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, Suganthan and Andy, thank you for taking the time to be on Reverse Engineered.
Thank you so
Cheers,
much,
John.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. That's it for today's podcast. You can access the episode show notes at kinsta.com/podcast. That's kinsta.com/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Reverse Engineered and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or the platform you're listening on right now. See you next time.